How's it? Welcome back to Baz's Garage, where we are still keeping it simple, stupid. So, had a bit of a break from the Kingkat mower. Been a bit distracted getting my other mower going, and had test and tune the other day, worked out pretty good. So, still got some work to do on that, but back onto the Kingkat. So, where we're at now is we are about to put the clutch in. So, what I've done is, you've seen me before, I've grabbed my level, and I've put my level onto the chassis, and it gives me a nice level. What I did was I got one of these cheap laser levels, and as you can see with the laser level, it gives us a nice little laser line that goes across. You can see it's level. So if I take that off, and it's a bit hard to see in this light, but effectively what I've done is you can almost see the little orange red light right on there. So it's sitting right on that pulley there, and it's the same on that pulley there. So then what I did was I made up this clutch here. So this was already on the old mower. So this is basically a bush through there with a bit of steel and a couple of pulleys on there. So obviously there's a flat one for the front and a V one for the back of the belt. Now what I did was I got the pulleys, and I've already cheated on this a little bit. So I got the pulleys and I stuck them down here, and I got the height that I wanted by using the laser level. So I can see that the belt is going to sit right on that pulley, which is giving me a perfect place to set it all up. So then I've made this piece up, which has got the bolt through here. I'm actually going to weld that on here, and then that will enable us to move back and forward. And then I've got this bit of steel, and I'm going to weld that onto that, because when the belt's on, and I'll just grab the belt, which is just down here. So when the belt's on, now I think this belt's probably going to be a bit tight. This is a 100-inch belt, but I might have to go to a 101 belt. But they do stretch a bit when you first put them on, so like it's fairly loose, but it might not be loose enough. So when you put this on here, you want to make sure that the back of the belt runs on the flat pulley, and the ribbed belt or the groove belt fits on there. So the idea is that when it's completely at neutral, you don't want it to be actually touching necessarily any of those pulleys. It's just loose, and then obviously to tension it, it's going to rotate that way, and it's going to tension up the belt. So I'm going to basically set that up almost exactly there. And then by the time I've welded this onto here, I can then bring a pulley in, a rod across from here with a piece moving, and I'll link the two together like I did in the Billy Bob mower. But yeah, that's the next thing to do. So what I've got to do now is weld that onto there, drill a couple of holes, and work out where the foot pedal is going to go for the clutch. Alright, so we've got a bit further along with the clutch. So we've got this original part. That was the part here, which has got the spacer and the bush in here with a little grease nipple on it, which is great. So that's done. I've welded the piece onto here to give me the right sort of angle and to get the clutch actuator. Then what I've done is I've made a little link rod. Just got a thread on each end, and I just found these lying around. So this is an old ball joint one that I've got, and this is just a normal little hinge joint. So what I've done is I've made a piece that goes across here. This is actually a piece off another mower, so again, just reusing stuff. Just drilled a hole in the piece here and drilled a hole in here. That'll all slide together. I've put a washer on here because I didn't want the edge of this to foul onto the edge of that. So the little washer goes onto there. What did I do with the nut that I had here somewhere? Oh, there we go. And then the nut goes onto here. Now I didn't have a lot of room to play with here, hence why the belt is sitting on as well, but you can see that that's now taken the space away from there, so that when we turn it, it doesn't hit onto the edge of the hinge joint, so you've got to watch out for that. Then what we did was we had to watch where the belt was sitting, and so I've had to drop this down a lot lower than I would like to drop it down, unless I brought it right over the top of the belt, but then we'd have to take this off to change the belt, and we don't want to do that. So I've dropped that down. I've got a piece here that is got a couple of bolts, and we're going to bolt the pedal for the clutch onto there, so that's basically going to sit on there, and then that whole lot slides through, and we end up with, once the clutch is on there and welded, this will actually then move back and forward. So we've got a little bit of movement here. Hopefully it's going to be enough. So then once we grab the spacer, and we put it through onto the clutch part, and then we bolt this on here. So I've actually welded the nut underneath there as well, so that it means that we don't need to hold the nut underneath, which is quite good. So we'll just tighten up this, and give it a wee tighten up. And then we'll bolt this up into here. So again, this is all just tacked at the moment. We're just making sure that everything's going to be okay. So we're just holding it on there, and then the belt obviously goes on that side and that side. So that gives us our neutral or idle position where it's not engaged, and then we can rock it around, and then we'll have to put a spring onto here, back to here to pull the clutch in. So we should have enough movement there. Now I did have to be careful of the steering, make sure that at the full steering that it didn't hit. So it just clears, it's very, very close, but hey, look, as long as you think about all these things as you're doing it, you can always grind a little bit off if it's going to hit, but that's pretty good. It's as far as it needs to go, and then it'll give me enough to do the thing. So what I have to do now is flip it upside down, sort out how the pedal's going to work, and I'm actually waiting for another belt to arrive because I think this belt might be too tight. So I've got another belt to come along, and we'll see how that works, and as long as they both work, we can weld the clutch pedal on, and then I can show you what the other side looks like. Alright, so we've actually put the belt on, we've got the clutch pedal on. So what I've done is I've now done a little bit of mucking around in here to find out where the neutral is. We've got the big spring that we're going to use, so we've drilled a hole in the actuator, and I've put a little loop on here to hook the spring on. So effectively that's going to hook onto there, and then hook onto there, and then that's going to pull that up and tighten the belt. So that's going to give us our clutch movement. It appears like it might be okay, this belt, so it's just loose enough to slide on there. So these normally stretch a bit when we start anyway. So that's now still just tack welded in, but I've now got the pedal onto it. So if we come around this side over here, actually what I'll do is I'll just drop this down so you can get a bit of a look. See, so I'll drop that down onto there. So you can see that what I've done is I've rehashed the pedal that we had. It bolts onto there. Right down to there is where the clutch is engaged, and then it will just move back up here to where it tightens up the belt. So we can still adjust that and muck around with it when we need to. We've got that adjustable link rod that we can use to change where it is. So the clutch now tacked in place, looks like it's going to work, so that's quite good. Now if we come around to the front here, I've also finished off the steering as well. So the problem we had with the steering was we had this neat little joint here that we were going to use. So I've now worked out where the centre place is going to be. The problem was that I didn't have the ability to make a spline onto here. Now somebody suggested to me that I could drill a hole and tap a bolt into there, which is a good idea, but what I decided to do, because I had access to a milling machine, is I've actually machined down the end of the shaft so it fits into that. If I can lift this up. So what I've done is I've effectively milled a little 5mm slot in there, put a keyway in, and I've filed across there so that the bolt goes through. So that now fits into there, slides down into there, and then as we tighten up the bolt, it's going to tighten it onto the keyway that I've got there, which will take away any of the movement we've got in there. So now we have steering that actually moves. It's all a bit loose at the moment, but you can see the steering moves from lock to lock, not a problem. We've got the quick action steering, so it doesn't move far from lock to lock, but everything's loose at the moment, so it's got a bit of slop in it. But I think it looks like it's going to work out quite well. So the steering is now sorted. The clutch is now all tacked in and sorted. What we have to do now is we have to look at fitting the brakes to it. So the brakes we have to work out to fit the caliper on the back of here. Once that's sorted out, we can run it through, and we're going to put the brakes on the steering wheel. So I'll get a hand brake cylinder that we can put on here that will run the brakes, and then I've got to make a accelerator for the foot as well, which will come across, and we'll work out how we're going to put that into the motor as well. Obviously then we've still got motor exhausts and guards and stuff to do, but I think we're making quite good progress. So that's about it for Baz's Garage today. Until next time we come back, Baz's Garage.